let me welcome everyone. My name's Mike Salter, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of being the Chief of Research here at the Hospital for Sick Children. To those of you that have visited the Peter Gilgan Center for Research and Learning before, welcome back. If you have never been here before, welcome. I hope you have an opportunity, actually in this bright, blue-skied, sunny day in February, you have a great opportunity to see many of the virtues of the architectural design and the collaborative environment we have here in the Research Institute at the Hospital for Sick Children. So I see many of Harry's friends from Senior College. So all of you that had to suffer through my talk at Senior College last year, thank you for coming despite that, and welcome. And Harold. So it is a true pleasure to be here today to celebrate the 85th birthday of Harry Schachter. I can hardly believe that he's that young. I mean, old. Sorry, Harry, you told me you were 90 when I was talking to you earlier today. We have been trying to take whatever opportunities we can here in the Research Institute to recognize the outstanding and amazing contributions of our long-term faculty members. And it just so happened that even though Harry has been an emeritus faculty for a while, we wanted to take this chance to have this opportunity to get everyone together and to celebrate Harry's 85th birthday. So first, let us all, if you don't have a glass, grab a glass. If you have a glass, we'll just have a little toast to our friend and colleague, mentor, and outstanding scientist, Harry Schachter. Happy birthday, Harry. Happy birthday. Well, Julie will lead us in the singing, I think, at the end. So we have a number of people who are going to talk, and Julie Foreman-Kay is going to have the last word. So first up is Manuel Buchwald. So Manuel, please come up. We have a number of former Institute directors and some colleagues of his. So
thank you.
Welcome back, Manuel.
Thank you. Well, I met Harry for the first time probably sometime in the late 60s or early 70s when Lou Siminovich moved his lab from the old Princess Margaret on Sherburne Street to the brand new Medical Sciences building. It's hard to believe that the Medical Sciences building was brand new at one point. And around that time, Harry came back from his postdoc and started his position as assistant professor in biochemistry, which was on the 5th floor, one floor above our floor on the 4th. And at the time, my first wife was a graduate student in his department, so I hung around there for a while. Then we moved here to the old, well, new then, Elm Wing building. And then maybe several years later, Harry all of a sudden moved his lab from the brand new Medical Sciences building to the really old Gerrard Street wing. And I never really understood that. Then several years later, Harry did what had never been done before, which was he became chair of a medical sciences basic department, but he was here. And I don't know to this day whether anybody else has ever done that, of being a chair of a department in medical sciences building, but being located, his lab located in one of the hospitals. I'm sure you're thin in those days because you had to walk all the time, right? When I became the director, 95, I enlisted Harry to help the Institute by being the chair of the staff review committee. And at the time, I thought, we need someone really senior but also highly respected so that when the decisions of the staff review committee are announced, nobody's going to complain. And sure enough, nobody did. Well, maybe one person. But Harry was always very good at organizing the meetings, of having the information ready for me, and then we'd meet once every, whatever it was, 6 months or something like that. Once a year, maybe, I can't even remember. And so he did that for many years, even after he didn't really need to do that because he'd become an emeritus scientist. But anyway, on behalf of the Institute and for my part, thank you a lot, Harry. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next we have Jim Friesen. I am indebted eternally to Jim because he is the person that hired me here many years ago. So, thanks, Jim. Great to see you.
Okay, well, thanks. Actually, I can think of quite a few things to say about Harry, but I won't say them all. Yeah, right. First of all, I want to say that the World Wide Web is a wonderful thing, and I have found a few things about Harry that I didn't know before. I'll bring them up. I was talking with Gabrielle briefly earlier, and one of the things I learned that in 2011, Harry and Gabrielle Brilliant published a paper called "How Sweet It Is." I thought that was a very good motif for Harry's career. Obviously, they meant this as a clever title for a review of Drosophila development as applied to glycoproteins, particularly development and aging, right? But it's also true of Harry's scientific career, I think, because Harry is the quintessential scientist who has taken a deep and difficult and wide problem and spent his years, his whole career after he got his MD, pursuing it. And that's actually quite rare these days. And in doing that, made a huge contribution to the field of glycoproteins. I have to say that over the years, I've heard Harry talk a fair number of times about his work, and I'm usually baffled. I have these visions of you cannot hear a talk from Harry without hearing about Glucknack. And I have this vision of these branch chains, sugars growing out of proteins, tremendously complicated, I think matched only by the complexity of cellular immunology. So Harry, of course, built his career on glycoproteins, but on the way he's diversified. He's done protein structure, gene cloning, human genetics, development, work with mice, fruit flies, worms, all with collaborators, of course, but all with the view of broadening our viewpoint, those of us who can understand it, of glycoproteins. And along the way, of course, he's received a number of national and international recognitions, well deserved. But I also wanted to go beyond Harry's glycoprotein career, because Harry, of course, is very active and interested in other aspects of science. A typical conversation with Harry about science goes like this. Harry, I read this interesting paper. Harry says, oh, I don't know anything about that. That's beyond my field. And then he gives you chapter and verse of what happened in that field. But of course, there are other aspects to Harry beyond science. Manuel mentioned his brief career, 5-year career, as in the university, and Manuel also mentioned that it was, I think, the only case where a foreigner, so to speak, from outside the university, was named as a university department chair, and it worked. And that's because Harry is well respected and very cool in dealing with people. But there's another aspect to Harry's extra biochemical life, and that is music. Many of you probably know that Harry, for a long time, was a member of the Mendelssohn Choir. That's Canada's premier large concert choir. When he finished with that, he kept singing, because he used to go to a group every week up at Brown School, was it? On up Avenue Road, just near St. Clair, and spend the evening singing Broadway show tunes. Yeah. Anyway, Harry has kept that up all his life. So whenever there is a party with a piano player, Harry will be there as forming the nucleus of a group of singers who will sing Broadway show tunes all night, if given the chance. Now, there's one other aspect of Harry's musical career that you may not know, and for this I also have to thank the World Wide Web, that he has 2 YouTube offerings. One is a very touching version of Yiddish Mama, sung in Yiddish. The second one is that robust old favorite from Marlon Brando, Luck Be a Lady Tonight, from Guys and Dolls. And then I just wanted to mention one final aspect of Harry's musical career, and that is as a musical mentor to Lou Simenovich. Lou claims he knows nothing about music, but he loves it. So, many an evening, if you go to Kerner Hall, you will find Judy, Harry, and Lou sitting in the front row appreciating a concert that Harry has picked out, typically a string quartet or perhaps a vocal rendition with piano accompaniment. Or possibly Max Raba playing versions of music from the Comedian Harmonists. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Jim. So now we have a chance to hear from SickKids' first basic scientist, Somu Sarkar, who joined SickKids in 1964. That's hard to believe. But welcome, Omu, and I'm sure you'll regale us with more stories about Harry.
Yeah. It was around this time of the year in 64. I came to SickKids to give a seminar before I was recruited. And in that seminar, in the audience, Harry was there. And so I went back to California, where I came from. And then finally, a lot of things were going on. And finally, I decided to join SickKids. And then when I came to SickKids, then I discovered that you cannot get any cross appointment with the biochemistry department. And of course, eventually it happened. Mario Mascarolo was another one like me. And we got our appointment much later. So during this time, I came to know Harry really not through the department as much, but from there used to be a regular gathering once a month in TBBS, which is Toronto Biochemical Biophysical Society. And in those days, only 4 institutions, mainly people who were doing research, they came there from Princess Margaret, from Banting, and from university, and from SickKids like Mario Mascarolo and myself. And that is where I came to know Harry well. Research division of biochemistry. Then we needed a head. Who is going to head up this? And at that time, the only person who was strongly research-based and making a good name for himself was Harry Schachter. And that was the time in 1976. Harry was recruited as chief or division head, research division of biochemistry. That is how Harry happened to come here from the university. And we were so relieved that we have someone that, who knows about research, who has a strong research base, and that is how it all started. And Harry really didn't, interfere whatever we were doing, and he always encouraged us for our research. At the same time, he had his lab full. In fact, his lab was next door to mine, and David Williams was a graduate student, and Cliff Lingwood was a postdoc. Very active lab. And that was the time when he was doing really some groundbreaking research and on transferases. I still remember that. And that was many times I personally have seen that I would travel abroad to give seminars and abroad, and people talk, oh, you are from Harry Schachter's place. And and especially in Japan, for some reason, he was very well known in biochemistry departments. And I really sort of felt so proud every time I came back and I talked to Harry. Look, Harry, I met such and such people. And so that is how he really, on one hand, he was an excellent scientist, and at the same time, he fostered science and saw that we did well in our own science, and he was our spokesperson. That was a big thing in those days. So Harry actually came at a very important point, a pivotal point in biochemistry research. As that is how I really think of him. And I remember in those days, I would go to Harry's office, and I really wanted to draw on his experience in administrative matters. And I still remember Harry, typical Harry. I'll go to his office and tell him that, look, this is the way I think it would be a good idea to move in structural biology to this, and this is the way to plan. What do you think? And he looked for a few seconds, and there's a typical Harry. What the hell? You want to do it? Do it, man. This is the way he talked to us. But at least, whatever I heard, at least I knew that he didn't really any objection or anything. That was a reassurance. So that is the way Harry is. And I still remember this, but Harry can be really very difficult to, argue with him. I mean, if he is arguing with you, don't do this too long, because you have to give up, and he will just. Once I remember asking him that, look, you were in Saul Roseman's lab. I know Saul Roseman. I've met him. When I was a grad student, he came to give a course in our department at USC, and I know Saul Roseman. He can argue. So I asked Harry that, look, you were in his lab. Who really won finally? And then he just looked down and said that, no, he did. But Harry was such a, he's always been so friendly, so nice, so open. Just a really simple person, and yet he's such a great scientist. And another aspect of his life in Sick Kids, some of you know and some of you may not know, that we have a lunch buddy club in Sick Kids, and we gather for our lunch there. So those are the friends. Many of them are already here. You'll see them. And some of them who couldn't come, they send their best wishes. And best wishes from all of us. And I personally thank you for your friendship for 54 years, and for your encouragement, inspiration for everything I've done, whether it is science or anything else, or any of the things that I just want to thank you, and also I'm so proud to be a part of celebrating your career in science for so many years and everything you have accomplished in your life.
Thanks, Amy. Not yet. Dave Williams. Thank you.
So I thought I'd give you the perspective of somebody who is a graduate student with Harry and was on the receiving end of some of Harry's instruction in life and in science. So I first met Harry back in 1973 when I was wandering through the medical sciences building as a prospective grad student, trying to find a supervisor. And I've been through a number of labs, and I was trying to decide which one I should end up in. And Harry's was the last on my list. And I walked into his lab in the medical sciences building, and the first thing I saw was his office door. And somebody had taken masking tape and had taped bars on the window of his office. And below that window was a sign that said, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, because I'm the meanest SOB in the valley." And I thought, oh my God, this guy's trouble. But the door opened, and out came this guy with a booming voice, and he welcomed me to the lab, and he said, here's the projects you could work on, and he described them all with such enthusiasm. He said, you could work on any of these you like, whatever, and it doesn't matter which one you choose. Whatever you do, you're going to love it, right? And, I was getting more and more excited as he was talking. I said, this guy's got the enthusiasm for both of us, right? So sign me up. And it was probably the smartest thing I ever did in my life, so. And, in the late 70s and early 80s, Harry's lab was a really, really exciting place to be. And he had placed himself very cleverly at the forefront of this fledgling field of glycobiology. And he did it in a number of ways, but one of the best things that he realized was that you could discover these glycosyltransferase enzymes in crude extracts, not by trying to purify them or whatever, but to actually isolate and characterize very specific acceptor molecules. If you knew what the acceptor was, with its precise structure, and it worked in a reaction, you could figure out what the enzyme was. And this was something nobody else was doing at the time. And so we spent a lot of time preparing these acceptors and characterizing them. And I can't tell you how exciting it was to take this little molecule that you'd spend months and months working, characterizing as an oligosaccharide or a glycopeptide, tossing it into a crude gamish, his favorite word, of tissue and cells, putting in a radioactive sugar donor and seeing a few hundred counts go whoosh over to this acceptor molecule. And you discovered a novel glycosyltransferase. And then you could optimize this, it would turn into thousands of counts, and you'd get these tremendous signals that you could then characterize and optimize. We did this over and over, discovered enzyme after enzyme. And it was just a wonderful time because we were stepwise characterizing all these biosynthetic pathways that built up these N and O-linked oligosaccharide structures. And it was all due to Harry's insights. Yes, it was. And I remember Harry, early on, he said, you can't think clean with a dirty enzyme. And he went 180-degree turn because of this purified acceptors. You can actually think clean with a dirty enzyme if your acceptor is clean enough. And he really put the lie to that old adage that he used to have. And throughout all this, Harry was a great mentor. I can remember so many times I'd go into his office, and I hadn't really done that much that week. I had a little bit of data, and no matter what the little bit of data was, Harry was always enthusiastic. And he said, this is great, we could do this, this, and this. And he had all these different ideas for the future, so it's a great source of advice. But he was equally just as willing to let you do what you wanted to do, and it was great because it helped to foster independence and design experiments and so on. And the other thing about Harry as a supervisor that I'll always remember is that he never pushed. This was a guy who could motivate without any pressure, without any pushing. He felt the motivation had to come from within. And we all wanted to work hard. We loved his enthusiasm. It was infectious. We were all enthusiastic. And together we really did a lot of good things in those days. And I remember thinking as a student in his lab, if I ever get to be a PI and have my own lab, this is the supervisory style I want to emulate. And I've tried very hard over the years to do that. So thank you, Harry. But it turns out that Harry was not only just good at teaching how to be a good scientist, he also had some good life lessons to impart. And Harry, back in those days, was not at all shy about sharing, his views, and not always views that you were too comfortable hearing. And so I remember a few times when I'd screwed up experiments because I was clumsy or careless or whatever, and Harry would come over and he said, "Williams, you're a slop." Okay. Another one, my favorite was, "Williams, you're a beatnik." You're thinking more about your guitar than you're thinking about experiments. He remembers this, right? So after a spate of these kinds of comments, and I'm shrinking smaller and smaller as time goes on, I said, "Harry, why are you hassling me so much? This other graduate student on the next bench, he's so shy and quiet, and you're always encouraging him and building him up and praising everything he does. I work twice as hard as he does, And so I'll never forget what he told me. He said, "David," more like, "David, I've come to learn that there's two types of graduate students in this world, the type A's and the type B's. The type Bs, yeah, they're a little shy, they don't have a lot of confidence, and I feel I have to build them up, and I've seen so many of them blossom into really good scientists. And then there's the type As. They come into the lab and they feel like they're God's gift to science. And I give them a couple weeks, because they just might be God's gift to science. But I haven't found one of those yet. And he said, and so I take it as my personal mission to knock him down a peg or two. You know, teach him a little bit of humility. And that's when I realized what category I was in. And I'm happy to say that after 4 years in the lab, I wasn't getting those comments from Harry anymore. So we developed from being a little adversarial to being very close colleagues and really wonderful friends. So thank you for those life lessons, Harry. Well learned. And, you know, in the ensuing decades, you know, Harry's passion and excitement for scientists really sustained him. You've heard a little bit about this before. And I'll tell you that when I was finishing my PhD, I was saying to Harry, I'm not so sure about this glycobiology business. You know, we've spent all this time figuring out biosynthetic pathways and so on, but we really don't know what these molecules do. And, you know, I'm probably going to postdoc in something else or whatever. And as Harry says, well, you got to do what you got to do, right? But there's no way he was going to give up on his baby. And so, you know, he spent many, many years, it took a long time, reinventing himself, collaborating, and developing systems where he could do these gene knockouts of glycosyltransferase in worms, in Drosophila, in mice, and ultimately could show people like me that these things really were important. And he got in on the ground floor of human disease as well. You know, the CDG syndromes where the natural deficiency of glycosyltransferases in human disease. And so that just shows what decades of passion and perseverance can do that really pay off. So good job. And you certainly taught me a lesson on that too. And just in closing, you know, it's been an amazing 4.5 decades of knowing Harry and his wife, Judy. And I remember when I arrived in 1973 as a very naive graduate student from Winnipeg and being virtually adopted by Judy. You know, it was terrific. I felt very welcome. And somebody mentioned parties and so on, and that's absolutely true. Harry and Judy welcomed us all into their home. We started out with this very small group of people, and it grew, you know, as the lab grew, and Jeremy Carver's lab joined us. And the evening didn't get very far before the guitar came out or the piano came out, and then the voice came out. And Harry would just fill the room. And didn't matter how shy the graduate student was, you know, sitting on the old couch over there, they're happy to sing because they would never be heard over Harry. So Harry, happy 85th, and Judy and Harry, thank you for 40 and a half decades of friendship. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, now Julie. Do you want to clip that on or just hold it?
Okay, so I, as current program head of molecular medicine, want to add my congratulations to Harry on his 85th birthday and for a really immensely successful and inspiring career. So as head of the program, I want to also thank you for your recent involvement as an emeritus, one of our very active emeritus members. But for the past 25 plus years that I've been in this program, to just thank you for your incredibly, just to look at the kind of impact that your science has been really inspiring to many of us in the program, and also your warmth as a colleague for all these years. So I want to thank you so much for that. So in my program head role, I want to thank Joanne Satarsky for arranging a lot of the things today. But one of the things that she did, and I want to point everybody's attention to, was develop this really beautiful slideshow, which has pictures of Harry at various times in his life and some science things interspersed here, and career awards. Some of the things we've gotten from Judy and from Aviva, his daughter. Other things that, just from the science. So thank you, Joanne, and I encourage everybody to look at this. one of the things that, if you look at this, you will see is that Harry now has a Wikipedia page. And this is a gift from his son Asher. And the resolution is not so great here, but I encourage everybody to go home and look up Harry on the Wikipedia page. So I don't know if you saw that before, Harry and Judy, but this is a gift from Asher, and supported by a number of people who are here, David and other people who contributed. Some other things that I want to point your attention to is that we have with us the Sick Kids archivist, David Wentzler, who's in the back there, and he has brought with him some things from Harry's lab, and they're on the table over there with some notes and explanations, and you can also talk to David. Some very interesting pieces. In the early days, there was a lot of hand-blown glassware, and Harry has some glass stoppers and a book on laboratory glass blowing methods that I guess you used many years ago, and there's some other old equipment and some notes and some old books. So I point you into this table, so when we're finished, have a look and have some nostalgia about the way some science used to be done. So I don't really want to spend any more time, and I want to encourage everybody to enjoy this party, but I just want to end by thanking everybody for coming and celebrating this special occasion. But as Mike said, we should probably sing. I mean, I remember in the old biochemistry research, we used to have Christmas parties, and I'll never forget, this is sort of anomalous thing where Harry singing Christmas carols, accompanied by Charlie Deaver on the piano, sort of the two Jewish members of the department, leading us all in Christmas carol. So I think we have to sing in honor of Harry's birthday. So let's do it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Harry. Happy birthday to you. All the best, Harry.
So on that, one more thing for me.
Sorry. On the musical note, we actually have a gift from Molecular Medicine, which is a gift of music, a gift certificate to Kerner Hall concerts. And so...
Do you have something to say, Harry? You always get the last word, so you're certainly welcome to have the last word. I was informed otherwise. Okay, as always, Harry gets the last word. So.
Okay, so I can't sing this. Dear friends and family. Here's the speech. Dear friends and family, I greatly appreciate the honor that you have bestowed on me on the occasion of my 85th birthday. I've been very fortunate to live an exciting life in science, surrounded by many wonderful colleagues here and all over the world. As you know, science does not function without collaboration. I've been very privileged to know many brilliant and generous scientific collaborators with whom I have been able to exchange ideas. My career has given me the opportunity to form many lasting friendships, and I've also valued this. It has been a great adventure, and I'm very thankful, and I really mean this, very thankful. I must also thank Julie Foreman-Cave, great thanks, Julie, for spearheading this idea, and Joan Sitarski for helping to orchestrate this event and make it a success. And thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm very much touched and honored to be celebrated in this way, and that comes from the heart. I really mean this. So thank you so much for coming, all of you sitting here. Thank you. Thank you.
Encore.
Without a song, the play would never end. Without a song, how's it go? I have calypso. What's that? I don't know the words. I have to have the words. You want me to do Ave Maria? No, I can't.
Okay, thank you.